that you need. First, I am from Michika in Adamawa State. It's a small town in the northern part of the state, and my father was a military man and who provided one of the people who provided military cover for this country before our independence. As a matter of fact, before he died, he had a medal, in one of his limbs for the 40 years he lived. Now, fortunately for us, he graduated up to 10 people by the last 15 years before he died. And I'm also happy to say that I am one of 3 professors from the family out of that number. So he's somebody we are particularly proud of and whom we celebrate. My sojourn started with a school in IAEPT in 1969-70. Then, when Nigeria was unfortunately fighting its wars, a national high school was established by the federal government at that time, from which the government drew 4 people from each of the 12 states, and I happened to be one of them. That place is in IAEPT. And we spent 2 years there. Unfortunately, after the war, the school was disbanded and every person was asked to go back to his region. Now, what is important from my experience from that school is that the 4 of us from Northeast at that time went to that place without escort. Nobody had to escort us, young men for that matter. And there was also railway, the choice of a railway from Maiduguri that we took, drop off either Offa or Ibadan, and then proceed to that place. So that was our country. And that message is very important for us to take home because of the challenges that we have now and what we need to do to have the Nigeria of our dream. Now, having worked in the school for those number of years, I went back to the Northeast and finished in GSS Yola in 1974, from where I proceeded to Ahmadu Bello University after joining the service of Adamawa State, Gongola State then, as a clerical staff. So we went in service. I went to Ahmadu Bello University between 77, 79, did diploma, and then from there, I finished the degree 1980 to 1983. From where I proceeded to the law school in Lagos, and then finished from there. In the 2 institutions, I finished with a 2-1. I belong to the category of students with the best results from both the university and the law school. After that, the University of Maiduguri invited us to provide some level of staffing for the university, which we obliged. So I left my service from Gongola State and then joined University of Maiduguri as a lecturer in 1985 after I served my NYSC in Old Imo. That was where I did my service, 1983 to 1984, with a gentleman called Barrister Erebu on Weather Road. That was also one of my best moments in life because I had excellent relationships in that place. I had the opportunity to go to practically every court in the eastern region at that time, and even part of South-South, because he was quite an elderly lawyer, so he concentrated in Owerri, while I served all the other cases in the other courts in the rest of the East. So you can see that I've been around the country, and after that, in 2001, there was a need to establish more campuses of the law school. And one was set up in Kano, Lagos, and Enugu. Now, through a competitive process, I became the pioneer head and deputy DG of the one in Kano, which I managed for 4 years, and brought up the population of students from that time from 150 at inception to almost 1,000 by the time I left in 2004. Again, I left to become DG of the law school through a very competitive process. It was not just an administrative appointment, but we about 19 of us competed for it, and I emerged the DG successful in the process, which position I held for 8 years. Now, when I came in 2005, we met on ground close to 10,000 students who had problems with admission to Nigerian law school. It was called a backlog crisis at that time. And so we worked out a formula, cleared that number in 3 years, and then restored the law school to its basic job of admitting regular students from the universities. And we also, to ensure that that problem doesn't recur, I got the approval of the federal government to establish 2 more campuses of the law school. One I took to Bayelsa, one I took to Northeast, and it was the reason for the distribution. Other zones had campuses, except South, South, and Northeast. So I persuaded the government that for fairness and equity, one should be taken to the South, South, and one to the Northeast, and that was what happened. And then the third thing, major thing which I did in the law school when I was the DG was, I met the way the students, trainees were handled. We thought it was not in line with the law that set up the institution, because it's supposed to provide practical training for lawyers, you know, in ethics and the daily practices of the legal profession. So we thought the law school was training students the way universities were training LLB students. So a program that was run for 40 years, we jettisoned it, brought in a reform, and then brought in that ensured a practical training for lawyers in Nigeria until date. This is the program that is being run. Now, after I retired in 2013 from the law school, I went to contest. I joined the APC and contested for the governorship of the state in 2015. Unfortunately, I didn't emerge as the candidate of the party. Now, from there, the owner of Bayes University invited me for the second time, you know, to come and help out with his university, which offer I accepted, and a few months after I became the Vice Chancellor of the university. And while I was doing the job of the VC, I continued with my job in the political terrain. So I was appointed as a member representing the Northeast to the National Caretaker Committee, Extraordinary Committee of the party in 2020. And while there, I served to a large extent as the legal advisor, and also in the process had the opportunity to chair the Constitution review of the party, which for some time we were told there were a lot of efforts to review the Constitution, but it didn't work. So we were able to accomplish that task. Then thirdly, while there, we were also involved in a lot of troubleshooting. Working with Ken Enamani, we were almost a 2-man squad together with other people. One of our distinguished senators was also with us. And so that's how I was very, very active at the National Caretaker Committee. And during those tumultuous periods, the advice we offered helped to stabilize the party. You remember the Jegede case in the Supreme Court. That the advice we offered, I had the opportunity even to address the 21, 22 governors of the APC at that time went to provide some legal guidance on the matter. Unfortunately, that guidance was accepted, and that was what contributed to settling the issue, and the party moved on from there. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my last job, as I said, is Vice Chancellor Basin University. Those who know that university will understand that it's one of the leading institutions now. So with these brief remarks, it's my honor and pleasure once more to be invited and considered by this distinguished body for this position. You have with me somebody who is involved in solving problems, a bundle of experience in administration, in law, in a lot of things. So I'm really delighted that we are joining. We may be subject to the confirmation, if confirmed, that we will be joining the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to achieve the agenda of this government. And what I may conclude with is, in the life of human beings, which also extend to nations, there's a tide, as Julius Caesar said, in the affairs of people, which taken will lead to fortune. And I believe this is where we are. We have a president who has the pedigree and the resolve to take us to the land of our dream. And we are happy, if confirmed by the Senate, to be part of that dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. For many of us who are lawyers, you need no introduction. But because you have mentioned some of your students who are still learning from you, I know are here as distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I will crave the indulgence of the Senate to recognize one or two of the students of Prof. It's not easy to be a Director General of Nigerian Law School. It's not easy to be a Senior Advocate of Nigeria. It's not easy to be a lecturer of law for over 35 years. So one of the students is here, former Attorney General of Borno State, distinguished Senator Mongoro, immediate past Chief Whip of the House of Representatives. Is there anything you can say about your teacher?
Distinguished Senate President, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. As his resume is res ipsa licuto, it speaks for itself. As his resume clearly depicts, this is a man that has bestrode the political, the academic, the legal, and the educational landscape of this country like a colossus. And he's going to bring his experience to bear on the renewed hope agenda government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to bring good governance and deliver dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people. Distinguished Senate President, as rightly alluded to him, I am one of his mentees. He has taught me law of evidence at 300 level in the University of Maiduguri. And I know, as rightly acknowledged by him, he is proud to have seen one of his students today, not only as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but also as a former Attorney General of a state. Mr. Senate President, as rightly also alluded by you, I would still like to learn more from him. If not, I will not ask him any question. But because as a teacher, whenever I see him, I have that thirst to quench my thirst for learning. So I will ask him one question. that he will broaden our horizon, on the question that I'm going to ask. Sir, my question is, the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, or Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, as the case may be, is a very sensitive office and sometimes even performs a quasi-judicial function in the discharge of that office, especially when it comes to the issue of entering nolle prosequi. There are apologies and school of thought that the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice should be separated from the Attorney General and Minister of Justice should be separated in order to insulate that office from the vagaries and vicissitudes of political influence. So my question is, ceteris paribus, I learned that word from you. Ceteris paribus, if you are confirmed and eventually you are a member of the Federal Executive Council, either as Attorney General or in whatever capacity or ministry that you find yourself, what is your opinion on this issue of separating the Office of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, as the case may be? Thank you. And I have also sponsored a bill to that effect in the House, but that bill did not see the light of the day. And I'm still very passionate about it because I have occupied that office. I know the sensitivity of that office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Very distinguished Senator Kaka. One time Attorney General also of and here you have your teacher, your prof, your Director General of Nigerian Law School, and he taught you well. We can all attest in this Senate that you are a very well-behaved student. So you have anything to say to your prof?
Mr. President, sitting as chair, my name is Kakashe Ulawan. I represent the good and resilient people of Borno Central Senatorial District. I am from Borno State, northeastern Nigeria. The nominee standing before you, Professor Tahir Mamman, was my teacher, head of department, Dean Faculty of Law, and Dean Student Affairs while I was a student in the University of Maiduguri. In part 2, he taught me constitutional law, and in part 3, administrative law. I am very happy to inform these hallowed chambers that I was a student union leader in the University of Maiduguri when he was the Dean of Student Affairs. No trouble but doing aluta. Comrade Oshomole is also my mentor then when he was a labor leader. Mr. President, Professor Tahir Mamman is one of the best brains University of Maiduguri had, and then the Nigerian Law School. As a lecturer in part 2, he fraternized with students in the classroom freely. You ask him questions, he will answer, and then he will practically expose you to what the Constitution is and how it operates. The modus operandi of the powers of executive, legislature, and the judiciary is actually at our fingertips in part 2. Mr. President, in part 3, male students of the University of Maiduguri are not entitled to accommodation. But when he became the Dean of Student Affairs, he maneuvered his ways to ensure that all male students of part 3 in the University of Maiduguri were accommodated in the hostel. Not only that, he also gave us free hand as student unionists to operate in the University of Maiduguri. Mr. President, that notwithstanding, We graduated from University of Maiduguri while he left us halfway to the Nigerian Law School. At the Nigerian Law School, just like he rightly posited, he was the Deputy Director General Pioneer DG in Kano campus. He was later elevated to the prestigious rank of the Director General of the Nigerian Law School, where my very good friend and neighbor, distinguished Senator Weboy, was also his student at the law school. So we are not only two, but he has another stand-up for recognition. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, sir, apart from this, when I became Attorney General of Borno State, I had the rare privilege of becoming a member of the Body of Benchers and then a member of the Council of Legal Education, even though it was for a very short period of time at the law school and then the Body of Benchers. I learned a lot from the nominee before us, while I associate myself with the contribution of my learned senior, distinguished Senator Mohammed Monguno. I want to congratulate the nominee, and also in the spirit of teacher-lecturer relationship, I want to urge my colleagues to see reason. This is a best brain. He can work in any ministry you give him. He has 2-1 in those days at the law school and both at the university. I urge my colleagues to kindly confirm his nomination. Thank you, Mr. President. I so submit. Thank you, sir.
It's not, we are not doing confirmation today. We are only doing screening. But you know, for somebody whose resume is already well known to all Nigerians, in fact, thousands of lawyers across Nigeria. He has been a lecturer in the university, he has been a dean of faculty of law, he has been a deputy director general of law school, he has been a director general of law school worldwide, and in charge of almost all, in fact, all the campuses of law school in Nigeria. And he has also served even our party in various capacities, professor of no mean repute. So I know that some of the people raising their hands must have also been his students. So let me hear from the distinguished Senator Neda. Were you also one of them?
Mr. President, acting as chair, distinguished colleagues, my name is Neda Imaswai, Senator representing Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. President, to your dismay, he's 1 year my senior. I'm a class of 1985, why is a class of 1984? But I've read through his resume, and I'm quite impressed of his work at the University of Maiduguri, where I'm proudly an alumnus. So, Prof, I thank you for going to my school to elevate it to the level that my colleagues have spoken about. Having said that, I have just 2 questions for you. I wouldn't know what portfolio will be assigned to you, but I want to assume that you will be at least in the council where you'll be giving advice to the president and indeed helping our country. In the legal profession, there's this issue of forum shopping. It's very disturbing that a case emanates from a Edo State, for instance, and the lawyer looking for a friendly court comes to Abuja to seek relief, when in fact the nexus of that case has nothing to do with Abuja. I believe that this is very destructive to the legal system. I wonder what you would do if you are in a position to address this matter. 2, the Nigerian law school is actually facing a lot of problems. Today, I have not fewer than 6 requests from my constituency asking that they should be admitted to Nigerian Law School. And the reason they have told me is because there's such a backlog of students. Students who graduated 4 or 5 years ago are yet to be admitted to Nigerian Law School. And you and I know very well the issue of seniority at the bar. So those who graduated 4 years ago have now become juniors to their colleagues who fortunately have been admitted to Nigerian Law School. I just believe that there has to be something to be done to arrest this situation before it actually gets out of hand. Indeed, it's out of hand now. So if you're in a position, I ask again, what will you do to address this anomaly? Thank you.
Really, Senator Tahir, I would think that is a very good question. Because, Prof, he wants to know what you taught the judges when you were their lecturer. Whether you allow them judges with coordinate jurisdictions, giving divergent rulings on the same subject matter. That's one side. And then at the same time, courts of coordinate jurisdictions having universal jurisdiction in a way that even if the matter occurred in Akwa Ibom, somebody would run to Maiduguri to go and get an injunction on a matter that had nothing to do with the Borno State. So, distinguished Senator Adams Oshimole, I'm sure the labor union must have also had experience with the judiciary so that he can answer at once and take leave. You have anything to ask the Prof?
Mr. President, thank you very much for this privilege. What I actually wanted to ask is the fact that many of us in this hall, Mr. President, my name is Adams Aliu Oshimole. I represent the great people of Edo North in Edo State. We still have cases pending in court arising from election. And even the presidential is still pending. And yet, we saw that in Kenya, they had a dispute over election, and the issues were resolved within a month or two. Is it not possible to review, at least for political matters alone, to assist us as parliamentarians, if that becomes necessary, to amend the Electoral Act and matters related to election in such a way that between the end of an election and when the people are due to be sworn in, those who won or lost, that the issues in dispute are resolved. Because the English legal system, from which I understand we borrow our own legal system, they have a way of dispensing justice within months. And this 160 days at one court, another 160 days at another court, sometimes means that nobody is sure of the security or otherwise of his tenure until almost half of the term is over. There have been improvements thanks to the Senate and the House of Rep, who have tried to bridge the gap. But some of us think that maybe much more can be done. And what is the role of lawyers? Even the question raised by my brother from Edo South, where those cases are filed, not just they give conflicting judgment, but even the fact that a federal high court will entertain a matter, knowing very well that that matter is also pending in another high court, like even the one going on now in Edo State. Without it, I'm not going to mention the specifics, so it's not sub judice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Sass.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues, I was just being reminded here that I'm not a lawyer, and therefore, why was I raising my hand? Let me say very clearly that I may not be a lawyer, but I'm come from the cradle of the legal profession in Nigeria. I'm from Abeokuta, Ogun Central, the home of Adetokunbo Ademola, the first indigenous Supreme Court Justice, and the home of Bola Ajibola. So I may not be a lawyer by training, I'm a lawyer by ancestry. Prof, you come highly recommended by your resume, and I was going through one of the papers you presented. Maman T, unethical conduct at the bar. I want to extrapolate this into the bench as well. My question is this: a number of people have this impression that not only do you need to know the law, you must also know your way to get justice in Nigeria. As someone with this very rich legal background, what will you do to ensure that not only is justice done, but it's also seen to have been done by the populace? The second question is also the role of technology in reforms. Sometimes I wonder, why is it that it's difficult to deploy case management system in such a manner that even if a case is filed in Edo and somebody is going to file a similar case in Maiduguri, there's a repository that is online that the judge in Maiduguri could say, this is forum shopping. What will you be doing to apply technology to reform the judicial process in such a manner that justice is not as expensive as it is? And I'm sure a number of our colleagues who are at the tribunal will know how expensive it is to prosecute particularly political cases in Nigeria. So, Prof, those are the two questions. As I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I come from a town of lawyers.
Distinguished Senator Sadiq Omar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sitting as chair, my distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent Kwara North. Prof, your resume speaks enough for all of us to get clearly what you've been able to achieve in life. But of course, when we do screening in the Senate, we are not just validating your competency, capacity, we're also interested in knowing your thinking and how that thinking can affect the society. I'm going to be asking you a question as an academic. You school in Nigeria, you school in UK, you taught in a public school in Nigeria, you also are heading a private university. Today, in this century, education is capital intensive. What we are budgeting for education is almost nothing that can move us to survive in the world of today. Do you really think that Nigerian public schools, their funding, what they charge, can make public schools, public universities, produce graduates that can compete globally? If you think what they are paying and the resources available is not going to meet that, how do you think Nigerian public universities can have enough funding for them to be competitive globally?
Prof, you just take maybe 2 more questions and then you now answer, so you can take leave of the Senate. Distinguished Senator Abbas Wakil Adamawa Jr.
Mr. President, distinguished Senator Amaminu E. Abbas, Senator of Adamawa Central. Mr. President, the nominee, Professor Tahir Mamman, is from Adamawa, and the 3 senators here, across party line, have agreed and endorsed the nomination of Professor Tahir Mamman as a minister nominee for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, from our own side of the chamber, we were told by the leader of the party in the state to give all our support for Professor Tahir Mamman to become Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that is why I'm standing to express our gratitude to Mr. President for nominating him to become minister in his cabinet. I don't have question to ask, but I have a request to distinguished senators. If there are no objection, Prof should be allowed to answer the question asked and take leave of the chamber. Thank you.
Prof, your senator from Adamawa has made a request to the Senate that the questions they've asked you are almost enough for you to move the legal profession forward. That you should proceed answers to them and thereafter take leave of the Senate. The floor is yours.
I am obliged, Your Excellency. Well, I will answer the questions in the order they were asked, starting with Senator Mongono. There have been a lot of discussions on the desirability or not of separating Attorney General and Minister of Justice. My own answer to that is that the office of the Attorney General is largely a knowledge work. Unlike other ministries where you can separate the mandates of departments, it's very difficult when it comes to the Ministry of Justice. So where does the start of the Attorney General start and end as compared to that of the Minister of Justice? Now, within our climate, I've always said a large portion of our problem is actually human. It's not about the law or even the Constitution itself. It's a lot of it is human. Once we agree to do the right thing, you will see that whoever is occupying that office will answer to the ethics of the profession, which requires him to be professional, detached, and autonomous in the exercise of his work. So, for me, the better position will still be to retain the offices in unity rather than in separation. That will be much neater and ensure that you get an appropriate Attorney General who will be accountable to the various other organizations of government, like the National Assembly, body of benches and all that. They work together. So that synergy and interface and accountability and oversight is already there. So that has always been my position. If we can minimize the influence of personal issues, human factors, that office will work better when it is combined. Then secondly, the second question is from Senator Nade, distinguished Senator Nade, about forum shopping, which His Excellency, the President, added courts of coordinated jurisdiction. Again, the Constitution and jurisdiction of the Federal High Court in particular, allows for that kind of flexibility. But by and large, what we are seeing is an abuse by litigants who believe they can go to another jurisdiction and get judgment away from where actually everything happened, where they are supposed to file their cases. And the lawyers who practice, legal practitioners, are supposed to sign a document, stating whether they have filed that case in another court, at inception. So that's also another check. And together with the NJC, which is responsible for discipline of lawyers, when petitions are made to the NJC where such happens, and it is very clear that it's been an abuse, the NJC can come into it. But by and large, it is always an attempt by people to circumvent the process of justice. And one solution has been suggested here, which I agree with entirely. That is the use of technology. Because if our courts, are well synergized in terms of the technology, then it should be possible for them to detect multiple filing of cases across jurisdictions. And I believe whoever becomes the Attorney General will work with the judiciary to ensure that our courts are well positioned in terms of technology. Quite a number of them are doing it already, but somehow they are doing it in isolation. So what is needed is a national platform through which some of these things can happen. Federal High Court, Court of Appeal, only the Supreme Court is free from that problem because it's only one. So that's my response on that. And then the question from distinguished Oshimole in terms of duration of cases and the resolution of cases, where not only according to him, you have to know the law, but you also know how to know the process. Yes, this parliament has been very active in terms of being able to work on the Electoral Act to provide for that, and also the Constitution. These are all possible because there's really no reason why our cases should last this long. So it is quite possible. So it depends. Once the new Attorney General comes on board, these are matters which can also be addressed together with the rest of other organs. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Prof. Is it the distinguished Senator Abu said he's your senator? He's the senator representing you in Adamawa. So let's just give 1 minute to say something on behalf of your conscience.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Senate sitting as chair. I appreciate the privilege. I want to thank my colleagues for the honorable way they treated this distinguished nominee from Adamawa. I want to thank you for going around as the politics of the chamber. Mr. President, sitting in a chair, 2 Corinthians 13 verse 1 says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. Everyone that speak here today speak on the kind of person that he is. It is not actually about living, but living so that when you are no longer here tomorrow, good things should be said about you. I feel so proud that every speaker testify of his goodness. Thank you so much, Mr. President. We can now respectfully again ask that he should take a bow and go. Thank you, sir.
Out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses.
2 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 1. Out of the mouth of 2 to 3 witnesses shall every word be published. That means what people say about you, it is important because they bear witness to you on earth. That is the word of God. Thank you, sir. Pastor Apple.
Well, if I knew that it would be out of the mouth of 2 or 3, but over 9 people spoke. So so the word is more than established. Prof, thank you so much and congratulations on your nominations. You can now take leave of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And with that, Professor Tahir Mamman, the ministerial nominee from Adamawa State, makes his way out of the Senate chambers. We are back, of course, live at the screening exercise, the ministerial screening of ministerial nominees sent to the Senate by President Bola Tinubu. Professor Tahir Mamman then made the number 45, so 3 more people to be screened. And we're seeing the next person making his way up to the podium to be screened by the senators. A very interesting screening exercise there for Professor Tahir Mamman, a professor of law, senior advocate of Nigeria, former director general of the Nigerian Law School, vice chancellor of Bayes University, and a member of the body of benchers. We heard testimonies of his addition to the legal profession from his students and even some of his classmates, people who were his senior, one person who was his senior in school, and of course answering questions on a variety of issues right here at this screening of ministerial nominees.
Distinguished colleagues, we have before us Uba Ahmadu, public servants, and a nominee of Mr. President for screening and possible confirmation as one of the ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You're welcome. Please use the next few minutes to just summarize your resume, and if you have anything that is not contained therein and you want Nigerians to know about it, you go ahead and say so. The floor is yours.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Senate, distinguished Senator Barau Jibrin, Your Excellencies, the leadership of the Senate, Your Excellency, with your kind permission, let me specially recognize the 3 senators representing Taraba State in this distinguished Senate. First and foremost, distinguished Senator Shaibu Isa Lau, who represents Taraba North, distinguished Senator Engineer Haruna Manu, who represents Taraba Central, and of course, my own Senator, distinguished Senator David Jinkuta. Distinguished Senators, my name is Uba Ahmadu, Ministerial nominee for Taraba State. I was born in Ukari on the 6th of September 1966, although I hail from Donga, a neighboring local government just about 10-15 minutes drive away. I started primary school in Township Primary School, Jos, in 1973, and then got transferred when my father, who was then a serving police officer, retired from the service and we moved back home. We got transferred to Dauda Kwancha Primary School in Donga, my hometown, where I completed in 1978. From there, I went on to Government Secondary School, Donga, from 1978 to 1980. I was thereafter transferred to Mbia Government Secondary School, Takum, in 1980 because the school was converted from a general secondary school to a science-only secondary school. So I completed my secondary education in Mbia Government Secondary School, Takum, in 1983. I then proceeded to the University of Maiduguri in 1983, where I underwent the remedial year program between 1983 and 84, got admitted into the Department of Common Law, University of Maiduguri, 1984, and graduated in 1988 with a Bachelor's of Law degree, LLB Horns, second-class honors. From there, I proceeded to the Ministerial Law School, Victoria Island, and I was there between 1988 and 1989. I was eventually called to the Nigerian Bar in 1990. I undertook the mandatory youth service corps in Enugu, the then Anambra State, old Anambra State, with the Department of Intelligence and Interrogation of the Nigeria Police Force, where I served as the legal officer in charge of reviewing police reports before prosecutions or discharges were effected. Thereafter, I returned home, and the combination of destiny threw some other things at me which I had not prepared for, but I took them on. And after a little while, I went into a partnership with a senior colleague of mine who is now deceased, may Allah rest his soul, Nasser Abdu Dangiri, who went on to take silk in the year 2017. It was for a very short while. Because of the circumstances I wouldn't want to bore this distinguished Senate with, I had to engage in some other businesses that were thrown at me that necessitated my getting involved into civil, engineering, construction, and hospitality businesses, which I all took together. After a little while, I decided on my own to contest elections. I tried first with the local government election, and I lost in my local government. I wanted to be chairman. I tried and lost. A little while after, in the year 2002, the then governor, His Excellency Governor Jolly Nyame, appointed me as the Pioneer Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs for Taraba State. I served also for a short while, and luck smiled on me. The then deputy governor decided to contest for senatorial. I was seconded to run on the ticket. We eventually ran and won election, and I was sworn in as the deputy governor of Taraba State in 2003. I served between 2003 and 2004. I tried to come to the Senate in 2007, contested on the platform of the ACN and lost again. But I have been involved in politics actively back in Taraba State and nationally too. So I would say that I have been holding one political office or the other for the past 21 years, Your Excellency. In between, I served as a federal board member for the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FEMA, between 2012 and 2015. Afterwards, I championed a group of APC members in Taraba State, named Taraba Integrity Group. Between 2017, it was a pressure group within the party. Between 2017 and 2018, we repositioned the party in our state towards the 2019 elections. In a short while, in summary, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, I am basically a lawyer who has transited between law, business, and politics. I want to use this opportunity, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, to thank His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu for giving me this wonderful opportunity to contribute to nation building, partake in renewing Nigeria's hope, and make my mark in taking Nigeria from its present position to where it should properly be. And I want to pray that I find favor with this distinguished Senate, that should I be lucky to be confirmed as the President's nominee, I will do my best in whatever capacity I find myself, because this is a call for nation building, to nation building, not for anything else. And where I come from, it is a very, very big opportunity, especially if you come from the backwaters of Taraba that we have been neglected for a very, very long while. We need opportunities like this to prove to Nigerians that we actually have people with capacity that can contribute positively to nation building. I'm happily married to my wife, my darling wife, Kaltuma Ahmad Chanchangi. I've been married for 30 years, and we've been blessed with 4 beautiful children. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, I want to stop at that. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Distinguished Senator Jimikuta.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as the chairman of the Committee of the Whole. Distinguished colleagues, my name is David S.U. Jimkuta, representing Taraba South, headquarters of Kararafa Kingdom. Mr. President, let me use this opportunity to once again congratulate the nominee, His Excellency Barrister Megari, whom is a proud son of the Kararafa Kingdom, and thank also Mr. President for nominating one of our best. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, there is an adage that said, what affect the eyes, affect the nose. I want to beg my distinguished colleague, having gone through his resume, he has served in various capacities. He can perform, he's competent. We, the Kararafa people, we are champion. I want to beg distinguished colleague to extend the gesture given to ex-governors to be extended to my nominee and to take a leave of the Senate. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Kaka.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the rare privilege. My name is Kaka Shehu Lawan. I represent the good people of Borno Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, the nominee before us, Uba Ahmadu, is very well known to me. He's a professional colleague, and we have relied on a lot of forums. Mr. President, it will interest you to note that Mr. Uba Ahmadu was the chairman of my primary election that produced the result that brought me to this Senate. Today is a payback time. He is a very good man, down to earth, is intelligent and incorruptible. I associate myself with my distinguished colleague, Senator Jimmy Kuta, and I urge my colleagues to allow the nominee take the leave of the Senate. Thank you. I so submit.
Distinguished Senator Kaka, I'm very happy that you are changing, at least the perception of politicians in the country is changing very rapidly. Did you say incorruptible? Very good. That is how all politicians are now in Nigeria. So, yes, let me call the former deputy governor of Taraba State, and my brother, distinguished Senator Manu Haruna, to say a word.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Haruna Manu, and I represent Taraba Central. Mr. President, what I want to add is all the three senators from Taraba State, distinguished Senator Shaibu Isa Lau, my humble self, and Senator Jim Kuta were in support of the nominee. And let me add this, Mr. President, were it for politics, I wouldn't be standing here to be supporting the nominee. But Mr. President, you told us from day one, once we're in this distinguished chamber, we set politics aside. I'm of PDP, but today I'm speaking as Taraba. And I want to tell this distinguished Senate that our leader in the state too, who is our governor, His Excellency Colonel Abu Kepas, has urged us equally to support the nominee, Mr. President. And let me add this. From what he has said, from his resume, this is somebody that has experience that cuts across both in the public sector and in the private sector. He has experience being a grassroots politician, having started from the local government level to being the commissioner, a deputy governor, and of course, before then, his private law practice. I'm sure, Mr. President, the nominee, if confirmed by this distinguished Senate, he will give meaningful contribution to the administration of His Excellency Bola Ahmad Tinubu. And I have no doubt, based on his previous record, wherever he found himself, he has performed incredibly well, Mr. President. This is the nominee we have. I want to once again urge this Senate, just as requested by Senator Jim Kuta, the nominee should equally be given that privilege which was given to the past governors. With your kind permission, Mr. President, let him take the leave of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President. I so submit.
Since he knows. Situation in the country and insecurity and other vices plaguing the country today. We are joining the Federal Executive Council with a lot of vigor to bring about renewed hope for Nigerians. Is there any particular innovation that you think, if confirmed by this Senate, you bring to bear that will make a difference in turning the things around for the better?
Thank you, Mr. President. One critical area I am very interested in is in the youth population. We have a virile youth population that, in my opinion, is largely underutilized. We have a youth battalion that is highly skilled in modern ways of doing business, and we have so many low-hanging fruits that people normally don't cast their minds to. Given the enabling environment, with the president we have on ground, I am very, very confident that the caliber of people he has assembled, if confirmed by this Senate, I have confidence in me that with the drive, the tenacity of purpose, and the mission people are coming on board to serve in this government with, people I have interacted with privately before now, I do not have any doubt that in a very short while, Nigerians will begin to reap the profit of voting in Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the government of APC into place. President.
Distinguished colleagues, you have a nominee that is supported across party lines, even from his state. You have the APC, the PDP, the Labour Party supporting this nominee. He has vast experiences. He has held offices the last 21 years, very high positions. He's very determined to bring the wealth of experience to bear in contributing his quota to the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration to turn Nigerians around, thereby renewing the hope of the less privileged and the citizenry. I want to thank you for your patience for the Senate, even on our own. We are not supposed to sit even on Saturday or even yesterday. We are supposed to be on legislative holiday, but we decided to sacrifice this time for the entire nation, because we would like the government to kickstart on a full-blown affair. So thank you for coming, answering questions. You'll hear from us very soon. Thank you.
Mr. Uba Mr. Uba Ahmadu, I beg your pardon, former Deputy Governor of Taraba State under Julie Nyame, making his way out of the Senate chambers right there.
Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, may I move that, in view of the fact that letter nominated last two nominees Yes, the letter came late, and they're in the process of completing their. We have the documentation that are coming in, but the security report also. May I move that we step down their own confirmation hearing till Monday, the next legislative. I so move to begin.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President of the Senate, esteemed colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Leader of the Senate that the screening of other nominee be stepped down the next legislative day. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved that the last two nominees whose correspondence was communicated to the Senate just yesterday, and who are still the process of completing their papers, be stepped down, their screening be stepped down until the next legislative day. And it has so been seconded. Those who are in support of this motion say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do resolve back to plenary for the chair to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
The President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Leader of the Senate. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved that the Senate will revert to plenary for the chair to report progress, and so seconded. Those who are in support of this motion say aye. Aye. And those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate hereby reverts to plenary to report progress.
As the Senate reverts back to plenary, we will be hearing the progress that has been made here today. Remember, 7 people were up for screening today, making the President's list of ministerial nominees 48. But we just heard now the last 2, that's Dr. Maria Mahmoud Bunkure and Mr. Festus Keyamo, asking that their screening exercise be moved till Monday next week so that they can have time to get everything that they need together for that screening exercise.
Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole resume consideration of the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, for the confirmation of nominees for appointments as ministers of the Government of the Federation of Nigeria. The following nominees answered questions today from distinguished senators on a number of topical issues. Lola Adejohn from Lagos, Bosun Tijani from Ogun State, Dr. Isiaq Salako from Ogun State, Professor Tahir Maman from Adamawa, Uba Ahmadu from Taraba. The Senate also stepped down 2 other nominees to enable them complete their papers, and they will be taken on the next legislative date. And thereafter, the Senate deferred approvals and confirmations to another legislative date. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, the only order on the supplementary order paper is a motion standing in my name on the amendment of the standing orders of the Senate pursuant to Order 109 of the Senate Standing Orders 2022 as amended. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move the motion.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to second the motion as ably moved by the Leader of the Senate. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, amendment of the standing orders of the Senate
pursuant to Order 109 of the Senate Standing Orders 2022 as amended. The Senate notes that the Senate Standing Orders were last amended in 2022 to accommodate issues that will make such orders dynamic to facilitate effective legislative process. Senate also notes that despite the amendment, there are a number of issues that still require further amendment in response to emerging developments that will enhance rules of practice and procedure for sound legislative practice. Aware that these developments have made it imperative to further amend the standing orders of the Senate 2022 as amended, which is occasioned by the creation of additional Senate standing committees and to have their functions and jurisdiction reflected in the standing orders of the Senate. Also aware that in view of the foregoing, there will be the need for a consequential approval of the Senate to renumber the rules in Order 96 to accommodate the new committees, and further notes that the amendments have been circulated to senators in accordance with Order 109 Rule 2 of the Senate Standing Orders. Accordingly, resolves to 1. Urge the Senate to consider and approve as it deems fit the proposed amendments to guide the 10th Senate in its legislative assignment. 2. Enter into the Committee of the Whole to consider the proposed amendments. And 3. Approve the proposed amendment as contained therein. And 4. Direct the Rules and Business Committee to reprint the Senate Standing Orders with the new amendments. Mr. President, I so move.
Yes, Minority Leader.
The President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I stand to support the motion ably moved by the Senate Leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the two-legged motion
You've been watching a live Channels television event.
Hello and welcome to Capital Market Live from Channels Television. I am Will Ibang. First things first, let's check in on the markets and see how stocks performed for the week. We kick off on the global scene in Europe, where stocks were slightly higher on Friday after a downbeat week. This comes as investors digested corporate earnings and the Bank of England's latest rate hike. The UK's blue chip index FTSE 100 closed higher 0.47%. France's CAC 40 appreciated by 0.75%, and Germany's DAX was also in green territory, up by 0.37%. The Bank of England raised its main interest rate by 25 basis points to a 15-year high of 5.25% as policymakers try to tackle stubbornly high inflation. Now in Asia Pacific, markets were mixed on Friday as rising bond yields continue to put pressure on equities in the wake of the U.S. credit downgrade. Japan's Nikkei 225 was up 0.1% and ended the day at 32,192 points. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index paired earlier gains and climbed 0.61% in its final hour, while mainland China markets were also higher. The Shanghai Composite was up 0.23% to close, while the Shenzhen Component rose 0.7%, finishing at 11,000 points. Now, the S&P in the U.S. and NASDAQ Composite slumped Friday for a fourth straight session and not their worst week since March, as traders seem to book profits following the latest corporate earnings releases and U.S. jobs data. The S&P 500 shed 0.53% to finish, while the NASDAQ Composite dipped 0.36%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 150 points to end at 35,065 points on Friday, marked